Today, I'd like to talk about not food, not all about food, but about the economy a little bit. Because I came across a Reddit post, and this is, it's every story that starts with "I came across the Reddit post" is usually bad, but I promise this one will be informative. It might be boring, but it will be informative. I came across the Reddit post on the Explain Like I'm Five subreddit, which is essentially where people ask questions that are complicated and try to get simple answers. Why do consumers feel like the economy is bad? Essentially, it is in shambles. Why do consumers feel that way? That's the question. And the comment field was both enlightening in some ways and infuriating in most, as I'm sure this subject is for most people, which is why I want to say at the start of this video, I don't care your political opinions or whatever. I'm definitely going to talk some trash about some talking heads in terms of like CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and OAN and all those other right wing ones. They're all bad, in my opinion, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later. But I don't want to make this political because that would ruin the point. I think most people can agree, and that's why I started, doing these shrinkflation videos recently, is because grocery prices are too high and fast food prices are just too high. Everybody, I think, can universally kind of agree on that, and the only people who wouldn't agree on that are people who have a monetary stake in the grocery industry, essentially, and that's almost all politicians as well as talking heads on the news. So that's why you can't really trust those opinions because everything has a frame, everything has a perception to it. That's all I want to say. I don't want to I don't want to, step on too many toes or whatever. But everything has a frame of reference. The way you see things and the way you perceive things is definitely affected by the media you watch, including this. If you're one of the I don't know, 15 people who actually watch all my videos, I appreciate you. I love you guys, but I don't really have fans. I got like 4 or 5 people that comment frequently, which is awesome. I love that stuff, but most people don't watch my videos. But I feel like the shrinkflation topic is one I want to explain, and I like making the videos about it specifically because I have that history and I can go back and say, hey, this is when this shrank and what the price was and what it went down to. And that's something I think will have value going forward, even just for me personally to reference. But the grocery prices is something that everybody can agree on, right, left, center, whatever, is too much. It's universal, like I said. And it comes across in this post just how kind of people's frame of mind is skewed. And this will help explain why the prices are high a little bit. Again, I'm not an economist or anything, but I do know, you know, things about food prices, I guess. I'm not an expert on that either, technically. I'm just a guy who makes YouTube videos, but it's something I'm passionate about that I look at and I talk about. So here we go. And some of these made me really mad, and some of them, were insightful, as I said. So I hope everybody can follow along with me. That's all I'm going to do is look at these Reddit posts that I screenshotted, which I did on my phone, which is why they're going to look like this, but hopefully that's fine for everybody. Follow along with these Reddit posts. Feel the emotions that I'm feeling, which is about to be anger. And realize where people are coming from when they talk about prices and the economy. Realize that when people say the economy is good, most of the time they're not lying. They're not like evil people who are trying to lie to you. Or if they say, or if somebody says no, the economy is bad, you're an idiot. It's not. They're not stupid. They live in a different world than you do. That's the problem. The perception issue. One side thinks that people just aren't looking at the numbers right, because the data says the economy is good. But they're the one who's not looking at the actual numbers. They're missing the forest for the trees, so to speak. And that stuff bothers me. So I want to call out a couple people. Here we go. Here's the first, and these I screenshotted the comments, and they were in the order of recommended or whatever. So these are going to be generally, I guess, the most upvoted comments at the start, which skew towards the point of view that the economy is actually doing good. And if you don't believe that, you're an idiot. And that is so infuriating. It just pisses me off. And I don't think that these people, again, they're not evil. They're not, lying to you to, be bad people, which is kind of like the perception is immediately, oh, well, they're bad people. They're lying to me and all of them are bad. I don't want to go down that route. What I'm trying to point out with this is just a perception issue that I feel like I can partially, talk about because I'm poor as fuck, and I always have been, and it's a point of view that you would never know unless you're poor. Like, unless you have been, at least economically poor, you'll never really understand probably, a good 40% of this country ever. It's just not going to happen because you just don't have the point of view unless you listen to them, which you don't because you just think that they're idiots. Here we go. Again, I don't want to get political. This is part of the answer, says Miles Points. Consumers have this type of nominal anchoring. Wow, burgers are $20. Additionally, though, there is a disconnect in what consumers are attributing increases in prices versus increases in wages, or versus wages. If you see a burger cost $20, you're not going to say, well, makes sense. We all spent all our accumulated savings post-pandemic and drove the prices up. In the eye of the consumer, price increases happen to you, which is, not exactly the case. Oh, here's the continuation. God, I was about to lose my mind because I knew there was more to it. However, if your boss calls you into his office and says you're getting a 10% raise, you're not going to say, well, duh, prices went way up and now wages have to catch up to preserve purchasing power. You're going to say, fuck yeah, finally my hard work is recognized. In the eyes of every worker, wage increases are your own merit. It's because of this dynamic that price increases are seen as other people's fault, but wage increase are seen as your own merit. That you can have a situation where your actual purchasing power has not changed much or even gone up, but you see the economy as in the toilet. This was the first reply I read that made me really want to respond to this, because this is what I'm saying when I say people have a perception issue, and they really think that we have the perception issue, that other people have the perception issue. But the bottom line is, the economy as it is, by the numbers, only looks good because the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, which is obvious, should be obvious to everyone, but it seems like these people who make a certain amount of money or above, and I don't even mean rich people, but if you're well off, if you're the kind of person who can save money every month still, if you have a 401k, if you have great health insurance, if you have savings, if you own your house, you're not rich obviously, but you're doing well. That's the kind of people who fall into this trap of, hey, the economy by the numbers is doing good. It's just that people have a perception problem, and they think, well, my money that I make is worth less, which it is. Here's the thing. The wage, and they'll point to things like the wage growth increase in compared to inflation, which they say has kept up, and on paper it has. But the important thing about that is that it's done on average. And wages have gone up for a lot of people, but wages have not really gone up for a lot of people. That's the important thing to understand here. Let me get back to the other picture. Oh no. Okay, this is an easier way to explain it. This is an easier way to follow it, at least to me. And the reason why I like picking these out is because it's supposed to be an explain it like I'm five. So that guy was supposed to be simply explaining it while he's talking about things like purchasing power, which just don't affect everyday people. That's the number one thing I want to get into your mind. Um, like people every day don't say terms like purchasing power. That doesn't come up in their mind. They don't care about stock numbers. They don't care when things go up or down. They don't care about any of that stuff because it does not affect them at all. The economy means money moving around. A good economy means lots of money is moving around. That doesn't necessarily mean any of it is moving to you. That's a pretty good simple explanation. Back to this guy. God, why do I keep going the wrong way? Miles. Okay, here we go. There's so many Redditors. Okay, is this the guy who I'm going to very much agree with? Yes, this guy I very much agree with. On this point, I don't know if he's saying other things. I didn't look at his profile, so if he's a horrible person, don't associate me with him. But I agree with a lot of his points here. There are so many Redditors in this thread trying their best to argue that people are doing so much better than they have been, and it's really, really showing just how disconnected the average Redditor is from how it is on the ground. If I had to make assumptions, I'd think it's safe to argue that Redditors skew in the direction of educated, predominantly urban people from left-leaning states and cities with good social programs. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I definitely think it does skew left-leaning in a lot of ways, and higher income. It is entirely possible that those Redditors actually are doing better than before in this current economy, but Redditors are not representative of the actual population. I live in a red state with a ton of corruption, wild wealth inequality, and is one of the poorest in the country with negative population growth. Again, I live in the middle of a bad area of Texas. Not a rich area. There's plenty of, horrible conditions all around. Luckily, for me, I get to live in this house, which really isn't that great, but, who knows how much longer I'll be able to afford living here because the rent has gone up so much. I can't really afford it. And like many others, credit card debt piles up. But anyways, okay, let's keep going on. The inflation post-COVID has been straight up devastating here. We are not seeing those benefits of a good economy. This is the part I'm 100% agreeing with. Prices have increased by several dollars. Wages went up like 150. That is 100% the case around me and around everybody I know. At least, and I only have contacts. I only know people in, let's say 3 states, Washington, Nevada, and Texas. Obviously, very different politics in all those places. Those are the places I've lived that I know people, who work for a living. And that's pretty much how it goes. The core problem that's facing, I feel like, this, price problem is coming from wages are not keeping up with prices, but people think it is because they are already in the stratosphere where those things are kept up. I'm making it sound confusing, but essentially, if you work in a job like tech, if you're in IT or tech, or you're a lawyer or a doctor, if you have, a job and you went to college for, let's say, that you had to get an education for, your salary might have kept up with price increases, but for somebody who, and I'm going to use a very personal example here, not a current example, but very current, but very personal. If you're somebody who worked at Walmart, let's say, and you got paid $10.25 an hour, and the minimum wage in Texas is still $7.25, mind you, but in reality, most places pay around $9 to $10. That's how much you're going to get paid working at McDonald's or churches or whatever. But anyway, working at Walmart, you're getting paid $10.25, right? And then every year you get a raise, which makes sense. But the raise you get is a quarter. You get a raise of 35 cents, maybe if you're lucky, 40 cents, right? So you start out at $10.25 in, let's say, 2020, and then by 2022 you're making, I don't know, $11.75. So you've gone up $1.50, but the price of everything you buy has gone up 30-40%. That just doesn't work. The economy of scale comes into effect. This is technically, you just got a pay raise of, I don't know the math, I'm not good at math, but that pay raise is like 13% or something like that, which would be good on paper, great. Everybody would say, hey, a 13% pay raise, that's how much your pay is increasing on average. Most people would argue that's really good, but it's not when your pay is going from $10.25 to $11.75, but your rent is going from, and I'm going to use another very personal example here, $525, for example, for a very shitty duplex, let's say, in Texas, and then your rent the next year goes up to 625, which isn't, too bad. It's a pretty bad increase, percentage wise. That's a 20% up, but not insane. And then let's say the next year you want to renew the lease, and suddenly they want $1,000 for a 2-bedroom, 600 square feet shack, essentially. And you just can't afford it at all, and you have to move. Let's use that as a good example, because you're not making more money to pay that. You made enough more money to pay the 525, and if they had raised it to, let's say, 600 or 625, maybe you could have lived with that, but they raised it to 1,000. And that's a very common story. Again, a very personal anecdote. That's the reality for a lot of people. That's what I want to explain, and this is obvious to some people, but apparently it's not to others. Let's go on. Buying a house is so far beyond our ability here that it's extremely demoralizing. I work in retail and watch people absolutely struggling to buy shit like fucking dog food. I can't afford the stuff my workplace sells, even with my discount. Again, I can relate to that 100% with a Walmart employee discount. Wealth inequality is getting worse, and as a Biden voter, it was extremely frustrating to watch his administration never go hard after price gouging. Every paycheck, I can feel the noose tightening. There's an economic genocide being waged against the working class by the 1% and the upper middle class, and no one to fight for us. The Democrats' policies, while left, are still neoliberalism that serves the rich. Okay, he's getting into a little political stuff that I don't really want to talk about too much. I don't want to discuss neoliberalism with anybody, but let's keep going on. I generally agree, even though he's getting a little extreme. I generally agree. And now Trump is going to make our lives even harder. And to see the Democrats say, well, maybe it was black and Hispanic men that didn't want to vote for Kamala, or the economy is doing so great right now, you're wrong about your living situation, is so fucking enraging. Reading these comments make me want to smash my phone. I need to get off this fucking website for the day. And that was my experience. That's why I related so much with this post that I said, no, I gotta make a video about this that nobody is really going to care about, of course. But instead, but I gotta make a long rambling video because I gotta get these thoughts out of my head, because I agree, it was so enraging. Reading those things, and some of the things we're going to read were just so enraging, because this is my point of view as well. This is where I'm coming from. I feel terrible for my nieces and nephews. I agree with some of this, but really I feel terrible for me. I feel even worse for my nieces and nephews than this guy. I live in a small town, not a lot of jobs. The jobs there are pay $13 to $15 an hour for manual labor, $11 to $13 for anything else. That's about what it is around here, except maybe $1 more than you get around here. I'd say 10 to 12 for the shitty fast food jobs, and maybe you can make 15 an hour if you want to go build stuff, or work a hard job that nobody wants, which you should get paid twice that or more for. 2 bedroom, 1 bath apartment is $1,400 a month. They can't afford that. 10 years ago, I paid $500 a month for the same apartment, and I was making more an hour. I don't see how young people 18 to 25 are supposed to go out on their own. 2007, I made $17 an hour, had a car, cell phone, apartment, and plenty of money to go out. Same company still pay that as a starting wage. Same company still pays that as a starting wage, except that money doesn't go far at all. Agree. Exactly. I mean, this guy's in a better situation than me, but I would expand this from age 1 to age 35. I'd say if you're under 35, you probably feel a lot of this. You relate heavily. That's right. We have a very high wealth and income inequality right now. So on average, the economy look good. And if you're in the very large group of have-nots, then it won't feel very good. For example, if 10,000 people buy a $50,000 car, that's a $500 million in economic activity. If Elon Musk buys a buys a $500 million yacht, that's still a $500 million in economic activity. The 10,000 people buying cars, though, involves a lot more people benefiting. To some extent, GDP captures that difference because money flows from poor to rich. So the more poor people it passes through, the more GDP increases. But you can definitely have a situation where the amounts of money changing hands among the wealthy is much larger than the amount changing hands among the poor. And to add to that, for most people, they feel that the economy is doing well when they're able to afford what they want and save money. Very key. This is all people want, is to be able to afford a couple nice things and save money. Food and housing has much higher inflation than most other things for a few years, so they are taking up much more of the budget for the average person than before. Rich people barely even notice these expenses, so it's less of an issue for them. Another factor is the stickiness of people's memory. Purchasing power is an indicator of how much people can afford to buy. This chart shows it for the last whatever, blah, blah, blah. You can see on average it has gone up, but in 2020 it went down by a significant amount. People still remember how that felt, losing their jobs or getting laid off while everything got more expensive. Again, very relatable. Most people have found jobs now, and wages have risen somewhat, or rose somewhat. But because inflation in food and housing was so high for a year or two, and wages did not keep pace, they feel like they're still worse off. Especially when they see things like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos doubling their wealth in the same period. All this is to say, wealth inequality is very bad for people in general. It makes standard economic measures less useful, it makes monetary policy less useful, and increases crime and political unrest, and it affects people's health. And sadly, it's about to get much worse, which I don't want to, again, don't want to get too political, but I agree. It is probably going to get worse, and this is my key point. It's a great economy. This is succinct, and I'm going to start going through these a little faster now. And just share the rage bait, I guess, for the most part, and some of the good ones, like that one, that understand the world. But I'm going to go a little faster through these. But again, this is a great way to explain it. Shorthand. If you want to explain this, too long did not read. If I want to clip this for YouTube short, which maybe I do, this is how you explain it. It's a great economy if you earn money off of owning things. Not so great if you earn money with your labor/time. And that's the core of it all. It's a great economy if you can make money off of investments. It's a great economy if you own a home, because that's an investment when it shouldn't be. Sorry. It's a great economy, if you have multiple cars, because for some reason their value is sticking a lot higher than it used to be. It's a great economy if you have a 401k. It's a great economy if you have stock market investments. It's a great economy if you have money to invest in meme coins or whatever, and you can sit there and game the system. That's great, but most people don't have money to get started doing that. It's a great economy if you have money in the first place. That's the long and short of it. And if you started out poor, it's getting worse for you. That's it. And then I read this guy's situation, very relatable, except for the part where he said he owned a house. Not relatable, but A lot of it is also very relatable. 2 years ago, I was tearing it up financially, selling at comic, video game, and anime conventions. A year and a half ago, sales dropped 60 to 75%, and it wasn't just me, other vendors reported the same as well. Just today, I finished my second shift peeling stickers off reconditioned tools in a factory for $13 an hour. Losing my home to foreclosure at any time now, and more than a bit worried about food after a month or so. I'm a 57-year-old white male living in Arkansas, voted Dem all my life, but the ignorance or indifference of the disparity between the wealthy and working people is staggering, and my party seems to have left us behind. Agree. Hey guys, that's great that money is circulating in the stock market. The stock market is up. For first-time homeowners, EV tax credits were on the table, blah, 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 but that wasn't offering shit for the average person. That's, again, that really underlines the point. There is some important nuance on this topic. The economy did suffer. As a result of the above, there was very noticeable increase in inflation. There was also an increase in wages that has outpaced inflation in the United States. So this is going to be, This is going to be another rage bait post. So generally speaking, important, people in the United States can purchase more than they could previously. Consumer expenditure statistics show that Americans are purchasing more now than they were previously too. So why does it feel like the economy is difficult? Because it is such a political issue in an election period. So there's a lot of incentive for one side to repeatedly tell you that you are doing worse. There's a degree of reality to that, or I mean, there's a degree of truth to that, but it's because it speaks to a reality for a lot of people. Second, because when the price of eggs goes up a few dollars, you feel like it is unfair, and a politician is to blame, but when your salary goes up, you feel like you worked hard and earned it, and it has nothing to do with politics. And that's possibly the most condescending fucking thing I've ever read in my entire life. That's his reason. Here's why. Here's why people, dumbasses, here's why dumb fucking poor people think that the economy is doing bad. It's because when they saw those eggs go up a few dollars, they said, fuck Joe Biden. And then, even though they're making more money, they're idiots. They don't understand. It has nothing to do with nothing. This is a problem, you understand, as somebody who voted, democratically, and probably won't in the future. I'll maybe go third party, just to piss people off. This is what you're missing. This guy legitimately thinks in his mind that millions of people saw the price of eggs go up, blames a politician, but in reality, they're actually keeping up, their wages have kept up, and they're just stupid. That's what he literally believes, which is just not true. That's it. And then he caps it off with, there are millions of Americans who do not earn enough and do struggle. I am not meaning to dismiss this, after he very strongly dismisses it with an extremely condescending fucking statement. That pisses me off, and it's pissing me off again right now reading it. All right. Okay, let's get a little bit more pissed off. let's get enraged. This, in my opinion, does not really capture the dilemma OP is asking about. Because when the economy is good crowd come out, they don't just talk about money moving around. They specifically cite stats that indicate that things should be better for the majority of people, e.g. median wages rising. Even for people whose wages have risen, they most likely attribute that to their own merit, while they attribute the inflation that occurred to external economic forces. So even when people are better off on net than before the pandemic, they see the recent prices of things and grumble. And for the people who didn't get those wage bumps, the economy genuinely sucks. So here's another guy saying the exact same condescending bullshit, and then adding at the end, oh, but for those people who didn't, it sucks. And they're missing that the people who didn't is a very large amount, tens of millions of people, and it's a very much an issue. It's worth considering that average wage goes up with age, or alternatively, older people earn more. Wages going up is expected. The amount they go up is what varies. So this guy's trying to tell him, hey, I mean, I don't know, he's bringing up a point that isn't really that important, but whatever. So does average money spent. While it isn't always a one-to-one metric on average, it all equals, which is not true at all. That's the problem. It doesn't all equal. This has been studied. Okay, this guy is another one of my favorites. Oh, I'm gonna get so mad. Because they immediately go into condescending asshole mode. I want to be nice. I want to talk to everybody in a way that is respectful because I understand that people are people. Certain people, let's say on TV, I can hate because they're public figures. That's fine, but these are just average everyday people. So I don't want to get too personal, but the condescending tone is what really pisses me off because they start with the disconnect is real with reality and perception. Again, saying basically you're a fucking idiot if you think that the economy is doing bad. It's just you're just an idiot. Obviously, you make more money. You just because the prices of things you used to buy have doubled or tripled. You make more money now, don't you? Yeah, I do. I make $1.50 more than I used to. I make $2 more than I used to, but the price of toilet paper doubled. So how does that correlate for me? It doesn't. Maybe for you it does. Maybe you used to make $40 an hour and now you make $55 an hour, and that's fine. Maybe that worked out for you. Great. Just shut up, please. Okay. If you're like this guy, just don't talk. That's all. Just be quiet. Just don't talk. But let me read it and get pissed even more. Many people say that they are personally doing well, but think most other people are struggling. That's not true. Again, I don't know anybody in my personal life who says they're doing really well. But great. So this guy in his life, and this is why he has this opinion, because in his life, most people he says are saying they're doing pretty well, but they're worried about other people because they have empathy. But this guy doesn't have empathy, so he's confused because in his mind, the majority of people are saying they're doing well. So what's going on? I think there's two reasons, and I don't think he really thought because he's an idiot. People are really bad at estimating inflation. They perceive it as higher than it really is because a few items which have increased dramatically in price stick out in our mind. Another reason is social media, which is a negativity echo chamber. It makes it seem like other people are doing worse than they really are. That is such a fucking dick asshole thing to say. I can't even explain. He thinks that people who go on social media, let's say for example, I bet many people can relate to this. If you check, let's say Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media you follow, personal, like people who you know from your life, let's say, or like people you knew in high school, you might be seeing a lot of, hey, here's a GoFundMe, I need money. I've been seeing a lot of those too. And that's probably what this guy sees. He sees all those things. He sees people who are asking for money and assumes that it's people who are really better off than they say, which sometimes it is, but the fact of the matter is most times it's not. When people do those kind of things, it's because they're desperate. And this guy sees that and thinks, oh, it's just a bunch of people trying to grift money, when it's really a bunch of people, who have ran into situations where if they don't have this money, they have nothing else. There are a bunch of GoFundMe's that are scams. I agree, but that's what happens when you have a bunch of GoFundMe's that are scams, is that people start to perceive that they're all scams and that people on social media are negatively are making it a negative echo chamber when they're not. I mean, I guess, you know what, to be fair, they are kind of making it a negative echo chamber. I'm trying to make it a little bit of a negative echo chamber right now. I wish it was more of a negative echo chamber, in fact, because it seems like you're not seeing the reality of the situation. But, let's go on. Oh, okay, let's see how mad we're going to get about this person. Canadian financial institutions have done a lot of studies about this. They think it's a three-pronged issue. Trust in government is at an all-time low. Gee, I wonder why. Which exasperates the issue because they view society as less stable, because it is, and view anything related to the government as bad, which the government whatever. It is. When everything you get is bad, that's why they perceive it as bad. The government could be good. Sometimes good things happen, but the majority is bad, So that's why the perception is that way, because it's reality. The inflation issue was real in 2020 to 2021, and we still haven't had our purchasing power catch up yet. They think such a once-in-a-lifetime shock will take a while to recover from, but expect our sentiment to return to reality a few years after our purchasing power catches up to pre-pandemic levels. While inflation was curbed by higher interest rates, those same interest rates put additional pressure on mortgages and auto loans, which aren't captured in the CPI. This is more relevant for us in Canada, though, because we don't have your long-term fixed-rate mortgages. So again, we have another person who has a lot of money and doesn't really understand anything. And he's saying that basically our purchasing power hasn't quite caught up yet, but it will soon, and we're all going to be good. It's just these people just don't understand the issue, because they view trust is at this statement. Like, do you understand? I think you understand why the trust is at an all-time low, right? You understand why people view it that way, right, sir? Do you understand? Like, let's see, what are we gonna do here? Okay, here we go. Let's get mad again. This only partly answers the question. There are surveys. Don't trust surveys, first of all. There are surveys showing an overwhelming majority of Americans think their personal financial situation is good, and then an overwhelming majority of Americans think the economy as a whole is doing poorly. So it's not merely people struggling while lots of money moves around. I'd say the explain it like I have 5 explanation is, okay, let's see how he wants to condescend to us. If things cost a lot more than before, and you're not happy about that, and you hear a lot of people complaining about that, you tend to think other people may not have enough money to buy as many things as before, even if you personally do. Everyone thinks the same, and now that everyone thinks the economy is bad in terms of how many things people can buy with the same money they have, even if everyone can buy plenty, as much as earlier at least, people see the higher prices in public, and the loud complaints about the higher prices in public, including in the media. They do not see other people's income and wealth rising because those are private. Also, there's a more psychological aspect. If things cost more, you're worried to not be able to afford things if something bad happens, like losing your job, even though it is easier than earlier to find a job that gives you enough money. And you see things costing more as economy bad, and you being able to earn more as my hard work / good luck. What a fucking piece of shit, dick asshole. What is wrong with you, sir? Oh, God. Again, this is the point of view. There's a large amount of people in the Democratic left party. Again, don't want to get too political, but there's a reason why a lot of people feel betrayed, let's say, recently, in the last, let's say, 5 or 6, 7 days, maybe, people feel a little bit betrayed by that party. And that reason is people like this, who very condescendingly say that, and with a straight face, say, even if everyone can buy plenty, as much as earlier at least, and things cost more, so people think the economy is bad, even though they make enough money to buy exactly the same amount as earlier, as much as earlier at least. That completely missing the fact that tens of millions of people, again, myself included, cannot, in fact, buy as much as earlier. That is the point. That's the problem. And it's not a minority. It's not a small amount of people who are in this bracket. It's a very large group. And you being a condescending asshole doesn't help. So again, shut up. Let's move on. In the media of my country, analyzing what happened in the US, they put forward the following argument. Because of the fast inflation recently, people haven't gotten used to, yet, to the new price of things, nor their newfound purchasing power. What newfound purchasing power? Because I don't have that. I don't have any newfound purchasing power. Again, completely out of touch. A box of eggs for $6, I don't know, is still way more expensive than a few years ago, regardless of whether you have more money, and therefore you're not yet used to eggs cost $6 and that's normal. No, it's not normal. It's not. And the reason is hyperinflation, basically, and COVID basically fucked it all up. But essentially, that's the problem. The problem, if you want to, take the economic approach to it, and the problem, outside of capitalism in general needing constant growth, that's, really the core issue. But if you want to ignore that, the eggs should still not cost $6. And people cannot afford to buy eggs at $6, myself included. So that's a problem. Thanks, that's good. Another thing is, when someone's wages go up, they attribute it to their own success. Really, it's market forces. Employers have to raise wages to attract and retain workers. But when prices of things go up, economy bad. Again, another smug, smarmy, slimy asshole who doesn't understand the reality of many people. So then, what exactly would it take to get people to see the economy as being good? Well, if the above arguments are correct, simply a couple years with low inflation and wages growing up just as much. Prices won't change up much, and people will simply get used to how it is now. This guy is just delusional. Like, I don't know what's wrong with him. Like, that would be great if this worked out, but he thinks that prices will not go up that much and inflation will be low, which may be true, but that wages are going to grow just as much, which is not going to happen. Again, for most people, maybe not most people, but tens of millions of people, that's not going to happen, has not happened, has never happened in their lifetime, and seems completely out of touch with reality. Workers expect annual increases to combat regular inflation and don't attribute that to their own merits. That's just an expectation of being employed. If that doesn't happen, then the worker is better served finding a job elsewhere that will give a guaranteed annual increase. Here we go. Here we find the libertarian. What the general public are upset about is that, yes, they do have newfound spending power, but they want to be able to buy more good than previously, not have the cost of said goods go up, so they can only afford the same amount as before. Again, completely missing all the people who can't afford the same amount as before. That's the point. The general public wants their spending power to increase, but the cost of goods to stay relatively the same. We have a comfort zone for the cost of particular items and are only willing to pay so much for it. Once they go above that, people stop buying. Simple as that. Yeah, that one statement, if you took all the rest of this bullshit out, I could agree with that one statement, so thanks. What's happening is corporations have been greedy the past few years and are trying to find that price ceiling the general public are willing to pay for their goods and services. These corporations know that there is a baseline increase for inflation that most employers provide their employees and are now in the practice of increasing their prices on the same cadence, basically negating any new spending power the general public gains. Again, missing the fundamental point that there's a lot of people not gaining that spending power. That's the problem. Like, that needs to be addressed. Let's move on again. Because prices are a lot more than 4 years ago, just before the pandemic, and there was a lot of, wow, I can't believe a burger and fries is $20. It was only $10 last year. Oh, God. I'm gonna get so mad. So consumers feel they have much less buying power, and that feels bad. Most voters think of the economy as the difference between what they earn versus what things cost. When they have less buying power, they feel bad about the economy. Also, we had a few years of good economic safety net, feels like. It is gone now, and that feels bad. Again, here's a person who just doesn't see any reality outside of their own, which is, again, probably the real fundamental problem, is that most people only see, things through their own lens. So we have this guy who says, after a few years of what good economic safety net feels like, it is gone now. That's you. That happened to you. You had a good few years of a safety net and it's gone now, and that feels bad. But that didn't happen for everybody. That didn't happen for a lot of people. There was no good safety net. They, in fact, had to keep going to work during the pandemic and not make much more money. You also have to couple in the housing market. People will feel extra economic pressure when housing demands such percentage of a budget. Yep, you have home prices that have gone up a ton, partially due to demand, partially due to rising material costs. No, it's not really. So a new home is more expensive. Existing places are more expensive to fix as labor and material costs go up. Mortgage rates are crazy high compared to pre-pandemic, so you have more people looking into smaller part of the market because monthly payments are so high. I mean, I generally kind of agree with it, but I feel like he's kind of missing the forest for the trees, so to speak. So let's move on. Okay, let's speed it up a little bit before this becomes an hour, because I want to end it with a little bit of advice that nobody wants. I try to tell people this all the time. People get raises and start thinking about the upgrades they're going to make in their lives, not about maintaining their current standard of living. No, I got a raise and I thought, wow, maybe I can afford to buy a little bit better food at Walmart instead of bologna and ramen. I don't really call that an upgrade in my life, more than meeting the bare minimum, but let's keep going. Lifestyle is creep is the reason even some rich people will never be wealthy. Sure, got nothing to do with this though. This is so weird to me. I got wealthy and I think my expenses per year capped somewhere around 300,000. I could earn 300 million and I just can't see myself spending more than that. Well, great. If that is true and you are that rich, great. Good for you. Please donate some money to me, but nobody cares because the median household income is just barely above a living wage. Who this guy? Okay, finally we have somebody on our side. Headhunter here on our side. Who wants to keep eating ramen noodles and beans when they finally get enough money to eat normal food? Regular people's spending increases go up when their income goes up because they have just been going without things everyone should have by default. Most people will never um, most people will never be whatever too comfortable. I blocked that off, but yes, 100% agree. People aren't, it's not lifestyle creep when you just want to be able to eat food that's not shit and afford, to maybe see a movie every once in a while or go out to eat. It's not really that much to ask for. You have a couple things going on here. The first is what they use to define how the economy is doing. Using traditional methods, the economy is doing great. Next, you have how the economy affects individuals. This is essentially the price and availability of goods and wages. Right now, wages are up, but prices are up. Finally, you have the perception of how the economy is doing. This is the one that really matters the most. Okay, hold on. Let me skip ahead to see how mad I'm going to get. Okay, I'm going to get really mad because this guy, again, saying perception when not realizing that there's a large group of people for whom his imagined perception is reality. Again, let's continue. What happened was inflation was high, prices went up faster than wages, availability went down, things got bad. There were a ton of reasons for this, mainly a global pandemic, and it took time to recover. Right now, inflation is down and under control, wages have grown. Again, they always throw in a caveat for the most part because they do know there are some people struggling, but they seem to underestimate it. They seem to think it's like, they seem to look down on those people a little bit condescendingly and not like, they're a vast majority of the service workers in the country, the people who drive everything. But again, let's move on. Prices always go up. That's why a candy bar that cost 50 cents 10 years ago costs $1 now. Again, that's not even reasonable because a candy bar that cost 50 cents 10 years ago probably costs $2 now. Inflation caused the increase, but now that inflation is under control, the price will never go back down. Mostly, this is just how the economy and capitalism works, for good or bad. Always have to put in the caveat again, for good or bad. There really isn't anything anyone can do to reduce the price unless you go with price controls, and that's a whole other can of worms. Again, had to put the caveat on that one. I don't know why I even brought it up, but I think price controls are a good thing. Anyone who says they can lower the price of goods is lying. Again, you can lower it with price control, like you said. This is what feeds the public perception of the economy. Prices went up but didn't come down. Most people, with a good number of exceptions, can now afford to purchase things, but still they are higher than they remember. Yeah, that's not true. Most people with a good again, here's the caveat, with a good number of exceptions. What's a good number to you? 50 million people? Is that a good number? 40 million? What kind of number works for you? Most people, with a good number of exceptions, can now afford to purchase things, but they are still higher than they remember. Availability of some things never fully recovered. One of them is housing. Until more housing becomes available, prices will stay high. That's not why prices are staying high. That's part of it, but the other part, is that houses are an investment. That's why prices are high. That's why the prices never go down. That's why he just explained that for good or bad, the price of the candy bar won't go down, is the same reason why for good or bad, the house won't go down. So, think about that. Until more housing becomes available, prices will stay high. So, partially true. I'll give that partially true on the factometer. Add to this people constantly telling everyone the economy is doing badly, like me. This makes people feel the economy is doing badly, because it is. So, yeah, if you want to play semantics and argue that the economy is doing good, and what you're saying is the economy is just your view of it, yeah, it is, because the economy is not a base metric. There is no specific definition of it. People pick and choose their metrics, and you're ignoring the reality of a lot of people. That's all. So thank you. Let's continue. Oh, more with this guy. Hold on. There were many polls and surveys on the economy leading up to the election, and a lot of them they asked people if why do they repeat the same talking points too? Like, we've heard the same conversations. This could be the same guy. I wasn't paying attention to the names. Maybe he's just repeating the same talking points, or they're repeating the same talking points that they got on TV or whatever from their favorite personality. In a lot of them, they asked people if their personal finances were worse, better, or the same as in the past. Strangely, the majority of people said their personal finances were the same or better. When these people were asked about the general economy, whether it was worse, better, or the same, the majority said it was worse. Why are you confused about this? This is a disconnect between what the economy is doing and the perception of the economy. Yes, it is on your part a disconnect of what the economy is doing versus the perception of the economy, because you're not seeing the reality for a vast amount of people. That's your problem again, but it always has to be a caveat thrown in. There have been a lot of interviews of just normal people and their feelings on the economy, which is, consider this, maybe this is an interview with myself. This is all anecdotal, but for most people, when people were asked this question in person, they gave the same answer as in the surveys. When people were asked why they felt this, most of them said that things were better for them, but they kept hearing that things are worse for other people. Well, so that's what this guy is saying. When he says this is all anecdotal, what he's saying is this is my reality, and this is exactly why I'm repeating these talking points, because this is what I see in my life, because I don't know anybody who's actually poor. This is all anecdotal. God. This is where people being constantly told the economy is worse comes into play. It is. Please, I hope you're one of the people who watches this, but you won't be. But please, God. Is the economy doing poorly? That depends on your point of view. What can be said is that income inequality is at record levels, not seen since the French Revolution. We are most likely in late stage or even end stage capitalism, where the concentration of wealth is with just a few people. The needs of corporations are placed before the needs of consumers, and profit is placed above everything else. What happens next is unclear. In the past, this usually meant conflict, revolutions, uprising, large-scale wars, massive wealth redistribution, depressions, and economic collapse. So this guy goes on that long fucking condescending rant just to end it with this. Like, I don't know who this guy is supposed to be. Like, who are you? With that said, like, what can be said is that income inequality is at record levels not seen since the French Revolution, and we're on the verge of a fucking revolution. That's what he ended it with. So in his opinion, people are stupid and they don't realize that they make more money and that they have the same purchasing power and blah 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 blah. But also, yeah, the revolution's coming. So I don't know. Like, how do people's minds work? That's all I want to know. There were polls and surveys on the economy leading up to the election. Wait, hold on. Is this the same guy? Shit, I don't know who made this comment. Damn it. Okay, I don't know if it's the same guy, but I think it is. This. There were many polls and surveys leading up to the election, and a lot of them people were asked, okay, this is the same thing. Exactly. Know what affects people's impressions of the general economy, but that doesn't affect so strongly their impressions of their own personal finances are doing? Propaganda. Propaganda is part of it, but people also tend to associate increased wages with their own merit. Again, own merits rather than inflation. Talking point number fucking 3. You see how they keep using the same things? So they see that a candy bar, again, with the candy bar, is now $1.50 instead of $1, and they go, ugh, it costs so much more. Good thing I personally earn more money so I can afford it. Like, who are you talking to? Because to me, it's you're talking to nobody, because nobody thinks like that. They either think, oh, okay, I'll buy it, it's more, but whatever, I can afford it. That's what you think. And then there's people like me who think, well, I guess I can't fucking buy a chocolate bar anymore. I guess my life is just going to be a little bit worse. I guess I can't afford to have a fucking chocolate bar anymore. Thanks. That's what people think. The propaganda part comes in how people decide who to blame for this perceived issue. Perceived issue. Call it end by calling it a perceived issue instead of reality. I'm sure that'll get people on your side. End by saying it's a perceived issue that people can't afford to buy enough food to live. Yeah, great. I honestly think this is the biggest thing. Wages have mostly outpaced inflation, but wages are going up feels like a personal achievement, while inflation feels like the government's fault. Most people don't realize the nexus between the two in the macro economy. Again, another fucking slimy asshole. You're getting out of touch with reality. I don't even know if I want to read random username. Oh god, I do. I was looking for someone to say this to. I'm in the UK where the economy isn't doing too well, and apparently no one can buy a house and no one can find work. But that's a completely different experience from what me and anyone in my network. All right, here's going to be the exact example of somebody who is living in this bubble, who doesn't see the reality and is confused for some reason why people are mad about the grocery store prices. This is the person who fucked us up. Let's say this is the person who let's say fumbled the bag about 9 days ago. This is the person who did it, essentially, even though they're in the UK. This is the attitude of the person who, fumbled the bag 9 days ago. That's a completely different experience from what me and anyone in my network is experiencing. No one is unemployed. Job offers are abundant, and I have a relatively diverse network. People hadn't bought a house in the last few years, and don't have parents to give them a deposit feel like they are struggling to buy a house. But everyone I know struggling is in their early 20s and complaining that they can't buy a family house, which to me is a disconnect. But because when my friends were buying their first house, we weren't buying our forever homes at 25. We bought small flats or houses so we didn't need to pay rent, then upgraded later on. But then I know my experience isn't representative either. That always have to end with the caveat. This isn't representative of very many people at all. You're talking about you and your mates bought your first house. Nobody in the real world is thinking about buying a small house at first as a starter home to upgrade into a bigger house. They're thinking they'll never be able to afford a house at all. Oh, yep, people listen to the media and feel pain when they're told everyone around them feels pain. Probably because they are feeling pain and they feel what's called empathy, which is something you don't have, I guess. Oh, I don't think you're going to get a good answer, because this is a matter of open debate. But one theory is that a lot of economic satisfaction basically comes down to vibes. I hate this motherfucker. In general, when people rate their own economic situation, they have a tendency towards ranking it as strong, but when they are asked about the economy in general, they rate it as poor. This can be seen as what do you mean? As a function of increased negative economic sentiments on social media, etc. Again, somebody blaming social media instead of the reality of people in the real world. That's what I'm saying. It's like these people are so terminally online that they don't know anybody in the real world, and that's a problem. I mean, I'm online a lot, but I'm not this online to not understand that people are struggling. To add to this, people often think of things like prices as the economy, where they think their own income as what they personally worked for. It's the government's fault prices are up. No, they don't think that it's the government's fault the prices are up. It's corporations' fault that the prices are up. And that's eaten away at all their hard work. No, it has done that, yes, but it's eaten away at more than that. It's eaten away at their ability to fucking eat a good diet, you know, to be able to buy a book, to be able to go to the fucking movies. That means that if prices go up 20% and their wages go up 25%, they think the economy is bad because prices are up. No. They're doing okay because they've got a new job that pays better. Again, this guy is creating a fucking fantasy. This is somebody creating, again, another person who's so in their own bubble, they're creating a fantasy of somebody who's not real. Nobody thinks like this. You invented this person. This is not real. Ooh. That means if prices go up 20% and their wages go up 25%, they think the economy is doing bad. Okay, because they, again, this is so funny. Who, again, imaginary person. Because they got a new job that pays better, but they're upset that inflation has eaten away at their hard work and 25% increase in income. In reality, these things tend to be linked because there's feedback between rising wages and inflation. McDonald's paying $15 an hour means Big Macs will cost more. And 5% better after inflation is a sign of a good economy. No. McDonald's paying $15 an hour does not mean Big Macs need to cost more. It really doesn't. That's the key point. McDonald's is only doing that because, according to capitalism, you have to make more money than you did before. That's why prices have to go up. But it really does not have to be that way, and they have enough ways to get around it. And in fact, wages are like, you know, not even that high of a percentage of the budget. So, whatever. I don't want to argue about it, but this is not true. Maybe if it was true, let's pretend. Let's go in the middle ground. I don't want to get too crazy. Let's say that it does affect the cost. Let's say it does affect the cost. How much does it affect the cost? How much does raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour affect the cost of a Big Mac, really, in McDonald's bottom line? Because that's a nebulous effect. Does it make the price of a Big Mac 5 cents more than it was? 10 cents? Or does it make it $2 more? You know. Think about it. Alright. This is, again, my therapy session. Every piece of conservative media and Trump saying the economy is a disaster without any evidence. E.g., inflation is down 2.x%. It's a non-issue right now. No, it's a very huge issue, Chief Blue Sky. It's a fucking huge issue, and you're just an asshole who doesn't know anything. The same people had their 401k go up 2% after the election and had to pretend or just weren't aware that it's up 35% the last year. Again, somebody out of touch with reality. I don't have a 401k. Nobody I know has one, and most people I know don't have one. So how's that going to work out for them when they try to retire? They can't. There is no future. So let's keep moving on. It's just like how so many people think that violent crime rates are at an all-time high when it's completely false. So this guy wants to be a different kind of condescending asshole, probably the most dangerous kind, who puts in a true fact because violent crime rates are, in fact, not up. That's a false. But this is true. So he's conflating those things to make him seem more credible. But yeah, crime rates, that is completely false. He's correct on that. But the economy is fucked. When all-time high is incorrect, well, hold on. While all-time high is incorrect, there was definitely a good spike in recent years, after a steep drop-off in the 90s, so the feeling of higher crime is not necessarily baseless. Okay, he's going for the crime rate. Fuck that. I don't want to get into that in this video. American lay people, oh god, lay people, bro. This is another one of the worst people on earth. And his name's got Esquire in it. Another one of the worst people to exist. American lay people aren't particularly well informed about macroeconomics. For most, the economy means the cost of things that I buy. As best as I can tell, people think the economy is in the toilet because the price of everyday goods rose rapidly for about 18 months, from late 2021 to mid-2023. Those prices are very close to being back to their typical inflation, but the damage was done. Again, another asshole who's being very condescending and talking about the economy. Maybe he is an economist or whatever, but, you know, another dick. who ends it with a caveat to make himself feel better, I guess. Like, just don't say anything. If you want to come in here and, do this pretentious bullshit and then say, oh, but I feel sympathy. Just don't talk. Just shut up if you feel sympathy. Nobody cares. That's all there is to it. When Average Joe uses the word economy, they are not even talking about the same thing that experts and politicians are. Average Joe is looking at how much a job is paying, if they can get a job at all, the cost of gasoline and food, how much rent mortgages are, and if they can get to upgrade parents' basement, apartment, starter home, forever home, condo in Florida or something. God. Sure, commodities and real estate are a component of what experts and politicians are thinking about, but the way they see it is very different. See, this guy is again imagining an average Joe because he's not an average Joe. That's what you don't understand. You see, the average Joes are the majority of people in the country. You're not one, as you can plainly tell, since you have to imagine an average Joe that doesn't exist. Because this doesn't exist anymore. People can't go from parents' basement to apartment to starter house to forever home. It just is impossible now. People go from parents' basement to roommate to maybe I can get a one bedroom if I stretch so far that I have to eat fucking ramen and spam. That's what happens. Do you understand? There's also this dynamic I keep reading about where the average person attributes wage increases to their own success. Again, another guy. Higher pay equals me being awesome. Higher prices equals the president pushed the higher prices button or something. Experts don't really see an issue if your wages rose along with prices, but lay people don't see it that way. Lay people. Thanks again for noting that your opinion is fucking useless and that you're completely out of touch with reality. Again, oh, this guy's, oh yeah, oh god, it's a back and forth between these two assholes. You hit the nail on the head. I hear a lot of, I make X more, but I don't feel like I'm getting ahead. People need to feel wealthier. This is what he thinks is the solution, is that people like him need to feel wealthier. Yeah, I find myself doing this too. My wage has risen significantly since COVID, and I'm saving better than ever. That's not how most people are experiencing this. That's the point. But the price of things I used to do for fun have risen so much that I don't want to do them as often anymore. It doesn't really make sense logically, but there's a maximum I'm willing to pay for certain things, and there's an arbitrary barrier in my head was created pre-inflation. Great, that's good for you. So you just don't want to spend the money even though you have it. Fine. Wow, I'm glad your perspective is represented. Like going to a movie is easily over $20 at many theaters now. I used to go like 2 or 3 times a year tops, whereas I used to go more like once a month. Great. I'm glad that you can't afford to go to the movies. You can only go 2 or 3 times a year now. Well, but you can save. You have savings account, you have a retirement account, and you're making more than ever, and you can afford to save. Boo-hoo. Food being 10 euros a day for me is like a fixed thing in my head. Easily doable, obviously, but there will be a day where it will be difficult, and I'll surely grumble. Yeah, that's good. You get to grumble. Some other people just won't eat. That's the problem. Come to Canada, where wages haven't risen since inflation. It's fucking awesome. Super fun to live here. Okay, so here's a normal guy, again, just trying to express the reality that he sees that people don't understand. Again, here we go. Another view that nobody wants, because it starts with, I just talked about my professor. Talked to my professor about this. Great. You know what? Nobody wants to hear your opinion. So we're just going to move on. I'm not even going to read this one because you're obviously out of touch. Because the economy is good for the wealthy, not for the rest of us. Stock numbers go up, so economy is good, but the vast majority of people struggle to get ahead. Real person. Thank you. Real person. Real person. Real person alert. And then the Q. Oh, and then, okay, here we go. And then we have real person alert. This is one I very much agree with that I'd like to read. So here we go. Again. A little catharsis here. And then cue the gaslighting from the upper middle class because my 401k is so good, or I got a 250% raise during the pandemic, everyone else must have too. The pandemic laid bare that there are 2 Americas, one for the wealthy and one for the rest of us. Anything you hear and see in the media about the economy means for wealthy people who have multiple real estate assets, a stock portfolio, and retirement accounts. Anyone you hear on here doing well is also part of that America. These people live in echo chambers and often have no idea what it is like to starve yourself for days because you can't even afford beans and rice. And I'm going to be fair here. I've never gotten to that point yet. I've been able to at least be able to afford, ramen noodles and bologna, but I foresee a future where it could definitely happen. I haven't been this destitute yet, but I definitely know people who have, who are friends of mine. I'm bologna poor. I wasn't beans and rice poor. I was bologna poor. So, boohoo to me. One America recovered after the pandemic and is the envy of the world. The other America struggles to pay for basic necessities and are constantly told by those better off than them to simply work harder while they are simply ignored by the powers that be. There's tens of millions of these people in America that were simply left behind, not poor enough to be considered in poverty, but not wealthy enough to get ahead of the monthly expenses 8-ball. All of the statistics are cherry-picked to make it look like that's not happening. Inflation, employment, poverty numbers, all of these are hiding millions of Americans that are absolutely struggling. And that I 1000% agree with. That is essentially the thesis of this video. If you're going to go too long did not read, just read that comment. Lots of people got raises. Okay, hold on. We're about to get mad again. Lots of people got raises, and actually many of them are at the bottom, not the top. It's one of the stories of the pandemic. McDonald's is now paying around $20 an hour here. It was around $11 before the pandemic. Unionized workers are getting incredible pay packages. Janitorial staff where I work got big raises. Imagine being this fucking out of touch that you feel the need to make this comment on Reddit when you're talking about how the janitors at your work, you're using it as a pejorative, right? About how lots of people got raises. You start with McDonald's workers, who you see as the lowest of the low, and then you move to janitors who are at your work, who have to, clean up after you. I mean, they got big pay raises. People, God, plenty of people are getting raises in this inflationary environment. Those who got raises that exceeded inflation are doing better, though they're still mad because raises always feel merit-based, and higher prices eat up a lot of that gain. Again, going to the same talking points. Those whose raises are less than inflation are indeed doing worse. Yes, this is the key. Inflation feels terrible, and it is indeed bad. Recessions are bad too, and much worse for the people that lose their jobs. We haven't had a real recession in 14 years. People have forgotten what that's like. Every country on earth had inflation because of the pandemic. Blaming the government, which successfully kept people employed, is natural but misplaced. Someone who has a job that is now earning less than they did pre-pandemic is still better off than if they had lost that job and got left long-term unemployed. But you don't understand that there are a lot of people who did lose that job and got left long-term unemployed, first of all. And second of all, that's not true. You're not better off. That's objectively not true. Nobody ever gets to know that their job was saved by government spending, however. What a dick. Again, not true. Thanks. Okay, a little bit of schadenfreude, because it's the truth. Consumers are in the toilet. Experts, asset owners are doing great. They are different groups of people, and there's nothing to say they have to be the same. One group is also profiting off the other, so it also makes common sense. Oh, look at this guy pulling out the words. U.S. voters have to be assiduous about vetting the term good economy. Stock market values in and of themselves do not equal economy. Love the downvotes. Keep them coming. Trump tried to claim high stock market values as a strong economy, and he was wrong then too. The same holds true with Biden. So I agree with this guy. Again, I don't mean to mock him. I agree with him. A little bit of schadenfreude. Not just stock market values, employment rates and wages are also up. Wages lag behind other effects, but they are going up. So we have this guy who I recognize his name, Chief Blue Sky, going into other people's comments to make sure to tell people that even if they're trying to explain that they've not seen any of this wage growth, that they are going up. And another one here, 8-Bit Farmer, does the same thing. Just stop. Okay, just stop. Just don't talk. Just don't talk. And the greatest wage increases went to the lowest earners. That's how he starts it. Wages actually outpaced inflation since the start of the pandemic. and the greatest wage increases went to the lowest earners. What a funny way of saying that. Because what he's saying is because you went from, again, $10.25 to $11.75, technically your wages went up 13%, which is crazy. I don't get 13% raises. I only get 10% raises. I only get my wage raised from $220,000 a year to $245,000 a year. So I just don't know. That's only 10% or whatever the fuck percentage that is. You got a 13% raise. The greatest percentage of raise went to the lowest income workers. A small reversal of wealth inequality we've had in the past decade. What fucking world do you live in, bro, where you think there's a reversal of wealth inequality in the past decade and not a huge acceleration of wealth inequality? For a time, I was someone who felt the economy was doing worse, but then I realized I had a lot of changes during the pandemic that caused a change in my finances. Anecdotally, it was the same for people that I knew. Those who felt they were doing poorly had new circumstances that would have happened regardless. So he's saying because he got wealthy over the pandemic, and he was just complaining, but he's actually wealthy now, and he made a lot of money over the pandemic, so he's good. And everybody who's bad, well, their circumstances have nothing to do with the economy. Their circumstances have nothing to do with the numbers. It's just because that would have happened anyway. So they were destined to be poor, I guess. High interest rates cooled everything down enough so that inflation would decrease. The brakes were put on in some ways on the economy, but we achieved a soft landing, meaning we're going to bounce back. I voted knowing that this should happen regardless of the president. The economy is going to get better. For him. The economy is going to get better for you, sir. But again, not for me, not for everybody else. Another thing that always shocks me. Oh my god, dude. Another thing that always shocks me with some of my less wealthy read middle class. So this guy is saying the less wealthy people he talks to are middle class. And if that's what he considers middle class is less wealthy, then this guy is probably extremely rich, or a liar, but probably just an extremely rich, out of touch person. So let's see. American friends. Oh, he's not American. So yeah, again, that's what we need. We need opinions from overseas about things you don't understand. Is that their spending expectations are totally out of whack. Oh, and he's going with the classic. I know it's cliche. See, again, you have to throw in the caveat there so that you don't get too much criticism. But really, you fuck you. How about that? I know it's cliche, but the amount of food they spend on food outside the house and or on takeaway is batshit crazy to me. The expectation a lot of people seem that it's normal for a middle class family to be able to eat out every single day is unrealistic. Same for car spending. When you have a couple kids, you don't need 2 giant brand new trucks and a fun car on the side. Again. Well, this might be the most out of touch with reality one on here. I don't have 2 cars with a fun car on the side. I'm not middle class, I guess, but that's not what people think. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking, like me, maybe, oh my god, I hope the car I have right now holds out for a while because I can't afford to fix it or replace it. And if it breaks down, I'm completely fucked. And I have no way to make a car payment. And I'm driving this same beater car that I've owned for 10 years that's literally from 1997. That's, maybe a personal anecdote, but I think a lot of people might be feeling that. Did you ever think about that? I bet you didn't. And then again, we're going to go back one last time to 8-Bit Farmer, your friend and mine, the most annoying man on earth. And I'll be honest, it feels like that's how people evaluate how the economy is doing. I truly think they confuse luxuries with needs. That's how they start this statement, right? Okay, and they're saying my husband's car is a lemon. So here we go. This is a woman. This is how they start this statement. A rich woman, I guess. This is how they start the statement, is I truly think they confuse luxuries with needs. Okay, so let's read on. For example, we own 2 fully paid off cars. We bought them used. My husband's car is a lemon and badly needs replaced. The cost of repairs is basically another used car. We can't really afford another car payment right now, so he's just driving that thing into the ground. It doesn't help that used cars are insanely expensive. But my struggle to afford another car is my reason why I feel pinched. And that doesn't explain the economy as a whole. The fact is, if the economy is doing badly, is the economy doing badly because I can't afford a brand new car? Is it doing badly because I think I should be able to find a better conditioned used car? Is it doing badly because a few years ago we could afford two cars and now that we're unable to replace one, it means we are doing worse than before? Yes, that's what it means. The honest truth is, I can't afford another used car because in the last 4 years, we bought land and built a house. Okay, no, it's not what it means. Thanks for the honest truth. The reason you can't afford to buy a car when you own two cars outright, which I guarantee are not from '97, is because you bought a fucking house and land. We took on a higher cost of living in order to be homeowners. That's a choice I made. That's a choice you made. Great. That's a choice most people can't make. You understand that? They don't make those kind of choices. They make the choice between, do I, have to get a new tire? Damn, I guess I'm gonna be eating ramen again. That's the choice. Ugh. So, do I base how the economy is doing on the house I own or my ability to buy a used car? How am I doing really? In the grand scheme of things, am I suffering? From a bad economy? I wonder if something similar has happened to other people. They changed up their financial situation and it coincided with higher prices that they didn't account for, so they felt the economy was bad. This person is so insanely out of touch. And then we'll end it with another reply from somebody we know has no idea what they're talking about. And on top of that, the car part is especially a bad factor because we're, and it's worldwide, still feeling the effects of COVID and the production crunch of the time. It's not that the economy is bad, it's that we're still feeling the effects of the biggest logistics crisis in history. Not real. I mean, we're pretty much back to full production. Not really. Another issue, the reason they're still high price is because they can charge that and they get away with it. That's it. Another issue is that US cars are frankly stupid, too big, too expensive, with no actual performance or functionality gain. Some part is the manufacturer's fault, but there is a lot of self-reflection to be had about why Americans value cars so much as a status symbol. So he's saying also big, US cars are too big and expensive. Well, that's not something I can control. You know why they're too big and expensive? Because people with a lot of money can afford to buy cars and everybody else can't afford to buy a car. So they're not going to make small cars. They're not going to even make budget vehicles anymore because people can't even afford to buy budget vehicles anymore. It's either you don't drive or you buy a fucking beater and hope to God that you find a used car. I mean, that's my situation. I don't know if that's everybody, but that's my situation. How many more do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh god, I took too many pictures, but I want to keep going. Tech might have laid off 500,000 people in the last 2 years, but DoorDashers make up for it, and the employment rate goes up. I'm sure the wages are going to catch up real soon. Okay, so this is a guy who's, this is a real one, a real guy. There are more industries than tech, and both wage data and employment data don't lie. Asshole guy, we already know, Chief Blue Sky. And a guy who has to DoorDash and Uber just to make a fraction of what he made before he got laid off, he's healthy according to the system. He went from one job to two. That's so much employment. I appreciate that. I like a little bit of fun humor. I'm with that. Median wages are okay. And then we got, again, downtown John Brown coming in to say the same statistic. So we are definitely getting some good names. Downtown John Brown and Chief Blue Sky. They're the chief out of touch people, I guess. No one is claiming the economy is good because the stock market is high. You might want to meet people. There are plenty both consciously and subconsciously doing it. True. From my experience, stock market is booming. Pretty much the only thing people point to when somebody complains about the economy. No, that's, again, a bubble statement. When people, complain about the economy, most of the time they are talking about the cost of goods and the cost of living and not the stock market. I'm talking about the economists that this post is talking about, not random idiots. A random economist is likely much stupider than the random person in general. I agree with that. No chance. Yeah. I'm starting to agree with that. I'm starting to feel like economists are just mostly wrong because they are blind. A big part of the reason is the separate media ecosystems that Americans inhabit. Okay, I don't want to get too political, but yes, I agree with this. I agree with this to a degree. Hold on, now I just read it. Sorry, I don't. Now I gotta read this. Sorry. At least this part. Earlier this year, CNN interviewed a male middle-aged voter who was complaining about prices. He was saying that this while standing on the beach outside his vacation home with his cabin cruiser anchored just offshore behind him. Yeah, times are so tough. But if you tell someone often enough that things are bad, they'll start to believe it. When you pound it home over and over every day, it becomes dogma. Republican voters just accept at face value that the economy is in shambles, even if their own experiences disagree. That's the key. They don't. And if you feed a tribalistic us versus them ideology long enough, facts cease to matter at all. If your party did it, it's good. If the other party did it, it's bad. Yes, I agree with this, but you're doing the same thing right now. That's where you're losing the plot, because I agree. We're agreeing, but you are making it an us versus them right now because you're failing to see how many people are facing this reality. This is what a lot of comments are missing. There was a national survey, and most people said their financials are doing very well. Again, another person who just does not read, they read, but they don't comprehend, I guess. No one's going to take my comments seriously because economists keep insisting that inflation must keep driving prices up, but no one in these answers will acknowledge is that wages suck. People are getting paid pennies while the 1% make more and more off our backs. So grind about how ignorant people are and go on and on about how they don't understand what the economy really is, but sure understand that they can't afford to pay for food, rent, and gas and have anything left over for a decent life. And no amount of blaming them for their situation or not understanding how good they have it is going to change it. Perfect statement, pretty much. No notes. Because the experts, well, maybe a couple notes, but not too many. Because the experts are deliberately using bad information. For example, inflation is high, but experts are saying that the rate year over year has slowed. That is, inflation from 2023 to 2024 is just 2.3%, which is totally irrelevant because we want 2019 prices back. That's true. I mean, I wouldn't say... So you can't go this far. You can't say bad information. They're not using bad information. They're using good information. They're just presenting it in a way to make it favorable to them, because it's true that it was just 2.3%. They're just presenting that as to be a positive when it's not, because again, we want 2019 prices back. So sentiment correct. When people say the economy is they mainly mean the stock market. The market has been good the past few years. That's great if you're rich. If you're not, your groceries are more expensive and your rent is more, cars are more, and everything's more expensive. Correct. All right, see, I started going down the list. Now we're starting to get into the comments that not as many people liked, but I start to agree with a little bit more and more. This one is a little bit personal for me, but since this is my, therapy session, my over an hour-long therapy session, I'm thinking experts have increasingly become the kids of rich people that could afford school. I don't know why I did scare quotes there, because I agree. These people were never poor, never had any trouble with money. They're being taught by the same people wealthy enough to get an education. It's a cesspool of knobheads without a clue, teaching each other and calling themselves experts. The economy is a dumpster fire because of wealth inequality, and the experts have no clue because they're often part of the wealthy minority. Their economics degrees can't possibly teach them what it's like to live on a minimum wage, and their models use advantages that skew everything because of the massive income of the very few. You could read I don't know what this book is. I'm not going to endorse that, but everything above this book, everything he said right here is 100% correct, in my opinion. Bingo. These are the same people who spent a half-century preaching about infinite growth, insulted those who pointed out that the physical reality is that the planet is finite, and now act surprised when we have climate change. Pointing that out makes them hopping mad, by the way. We are not dealing with a serious profession. This is a religion that benefits the rich, nothing more, and, surprise, surprise, they're saying that everything is fine, don't ask tricky questions, and objective reality is tantamount to denialism. Agree. I think it's partially propaganda that people think the economy is bad. I also think that certain generations have incredibly high Okay. Reasonable mix is, I hope they're a bot, because this is one of the most infuriating things I've ever read. Have incredibly high expectations and expect life to be incredibly easy with little to no sacrifices of luxuries they were given growing up. I'm glad this has -1. My sister was so hyped to buy her own house, but she knows those days are long gone. Condos are $500,000 now, and to live on the second floor and have only one parking spot. It's going to feel hopeless no matter what anyone says. They would both, her and her husband, would need to make double what they make now. Some things have really outpaced wages, and this is one. I can see why the youth swung so hard for Trump. So this is somebody who has a little bit of money and is maybe a little bit older, but understands that things are fucked. So shout out. Thank you. Blaming the youth for being too greedy is not a great view to take, but at the same time, it's been done by every generation. As someone young here, as someone young, here is a social contract, and this is important. This is how I think most people feel who are working for a living. I get educated, I get a job, I pay taxes, I work for 40 plus years, and in exchange, I get a home, safety, food, stability to create a family, and doing that. Money is a universal exchange rate and value of money to labor. Money enables all of the above, and that is the economy. People's confidence that money is enabling of that while being achievable otherwise, what's the point? Yeah, okay. People's confidence that money enables that is, that's the point. That's what you want to do. Otherwise, what's the point? Sorry, he wrote this kind of weird, but, I'm trying to follow it. In 2024, we are the single most educated generation in the history of mankind. The most connected and yet the most depressed. Because what's the point? The contract doesn't add up and there's nothing we can do. 100% agree. That's something I would love to talk about with a therapist if I could afford it. The issue is traditional early investments such as education have become commonplace, driving the value down, lowering average wage. Wait, hold on. Combine that with investment protectionism. Okay, I don't know about that first one. I see what he's saying, but I don't agree with that. I mean, education is good. We should do more education. Combine that with investment protectionism such as housing laws, driving the prices of houses up, usually under hidden meetings. For example, all construction projects must be filled with 3 different government bodies and wait 9 months for the overworked staff to get around, stamping the boxes so they can guarantee your home meets the standards, making the work extremely awkward. Oh no, maybe I'm going to start disagreeing with this libertarian part. I agree with all this part. This part I'm starting to disagree with. The biggest cost of the youth today isn't food or luxuries, but rent, health, and energy. True. As the house prices are out of control, as people buy 3rd and 4th homes as a safe investment, all while using the internet to match the recommended rent price for that area, meaning the free market no longer pushes prices down. Yes, healthcare is not all kinds. Okay, so, we're starting to get to the end of this video because I'm starting to go back and forth, but I agree with some things, like I said. People are doing all right, but just barely. No, they're not doing all right. Don't want to read this. Don't want to get too tribal. I don't want to get political, but there is a disconnect. Wait, hold on. Because there's a political disconnect between inflation being down, which it is, prices are still rising, and the fact that we need deflation to lower prices. Ideally, we need price controls to prevent this kind of predatory inflation. I agree, but we won't get deflation. All right, and that's the end. So this was a long rambling video. If you're still here somehow after this literal hour of complete rambling things about the economy, thanks, I guess. Not I guess. Thank you, really sincerely. You're great. I appreciate it. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Again, I want everybody to be able to follow the shrinkflation thing because grocery prices affect everybody. That's all there is to it. These kind of things affect everybody, unless you're ultra rich. That's the difference. It affects left and right. It doesn't affect the rich. That's the only difference. That's why I wanted to make this video that nobody's going to watch because it's not really that entertaining and it's just me rambling over a bunch of Reddit posts. But yeah, so last thing I want to say, the too long did not read of this whole thing is politicians in general will not save us. They won't save us from this situation. The only thing that's going to really help is if you organize locally and try to change things locally on like a city level, a county level, maybe a state level. Because I don't see any other way to really change things since pretty much every politician at the highest level is in the bubble. Either they're in the bubble and they have no idea what's going on, or they do know what's going on and they're ultra rich and they want to be more ultra rich. That's the bottom line. So the only way to get around this is to organize with people around you, regardless of what you think about other things. If you agree on the prices of groceries, organize, get together, protest it. You know what I'm saying? This is the time. We can protest grocery prices. Boycotts don't work. The reason they don't work is because there's too many people. It's too big of a logistical thing. But a local boycott can really work very well. A targeted boycott can work fantastically. If you, for example, have a franchise in your neighborhood that charges a little bit more than the prices should be, let's say, for example, you have a McDonald's in your neighborhood that charges more than they should. Their $5 meal is not $5; it's $6.49 or something like that, for example. And they charge extra for the sauces, and you hate that. Let's say that is you. I think there'd be a lot of people who would agree with you that they dislike this McDonald's franchise in particular. You can hurt that McDonald's franchise in particular. You can't hurt McDonald's, but you can hurt that franchise. You can do that by organizing locally. If you get enough people together to say, for example, use the code right now that they have for a $10-piece chicken nugget. This $10-piece chicken nugget code they're pushing right now that you can use once a week for the next couple weeks, hint hint, is going to cost McDonald's money in terms of it costs more than $1 for them to make the 10 nuggets, right? The reason why they do that, it's a loss leader, blah blah blah, everybody knows that. But if you, for example, had, say, an organized effort to use that code and not buy anything else from that McDonald's, and continue to do that week after week, and never buy anything except things that cost the restaurant money by using coupons and points and things like that, and never ever ever buy regular food from that particular franchise, you can do a lot of damage, let's say. So if you wanted fries to go with your 10-piece, you drive down to the other McDonald's that doesn't overcharge and you get fries there, or you go to a different place and get fries, but you don't buy fries from them. That's the key, okay? So local organization, look into that. Have fun, experiment, screw over the corporations as much as they screw over you. That's all you got. Just let it be known. All you can really do, and all I can really do, and the reason why I do the shrinkflation videos, just spread the word, spread the sentiment, let it be known that your struggles are real and not imaginary, because some people on TV and pretty much everybody, every elected official at the national level does not care about you, or does not understand how people are actually struggling. So yeah, that's my rambling therapy session video about the economy, shrinkflation, and you, which I'm going to call, a guide, I guess, but really it's a rambling video. So it's like a diary entry. And that's kind of embarrassing, but yeah. I'll see you for the next shrinkflation video. Maybe something in between. I don't know. I'll see you the next time I get pissed off about something and want to rant about it. And we'll see if it gets up to an hour next time. Bye.